Did your boss tell you that you need to become FedRAMP authorized? Let me help you understand what that really means. Hey guys, this is Gabriella. I am the Director of Governance, Risk, and Compliance for MindPoint Group. And today I'm going to talk to you about achieving your FedRAMP authorization. So there are a couple paths to obtaining a FedRAMP authorization. The two most popular that you hear about are the agency, which means you'll go through an agency sponsorship, technically an agency partnership program to obtaining your authorization. And then there is also the JAB authorization. So I'll start off with the JAB. The JAB stands for the Joint Authorization Board. And the JAB is a board that includes members of DHS, GSA, a couple of the other large three-letter agencies that really kind of get together to review and provide what's called a provisional authorization to operate, or a PATO. And so the JAB members, I just want to clarify, actually are the DHS, DOD, and GSA. And the JAB performs a risk review of all of the documentation that's provided by our cloud service provider, or the CSP. And so they review your security package prior to your ATO being authorized, and they work through the FedRAMP PMO to go through this entire program. This is the most difficult option to FedRAMP because it is very time consuming. And in order to be able to get through that process, there has to be a large interest in your specific product being able to be leveraged by many organizations within the federal government. And they do review a handful throughout this process. And it is very time consuming because you've got those three agencies with the, kind of more senior level officials that are participating in that activity. And so to help accelerate the process and the review, you also have what's called that agency partnership or agency sponsorship process. And so the agency sponsorship process essentially is that you have a specific agency that leverages your specific system. They must be willing to support through the ATO process and sponsor you, meaning that you have obtained your 3PAO for your assessment activity and pen testing activity at a minimum. Hopefully you have an advisor to help you get through this process and making sure that you're meeting the needs of the sponsor. But really, they're going to review your package. They have the responsibility to ensure that you're meeting all of their minimum requirements at the agency level, because they also have the responsibility to assess the level of risk and potentially accept risk, right, for their organization. And every agency, every organization has a different threshold for risk as well, right, and different agency-specific minimum requirements. And that can include all kinds of things, such as U.S. citizens only having access to your data. They may have specific requirements about your alternate processing sites, whatever the case may be. And through that process, the agency also has a bunch of responsibilities that they must adhere to in support of the FedRAMP program. They do have to notify the FedRAMP PMO that they are going to officially sponsor you as a CSP through this process and send formal notification. They have to provide evidence that they are actually leveraging this specific service. And that they do have the intention to do their own ATO at the agency level, meaning that they assess all of the customer responsibility controls and provide the ATO memorandum in support of that. And obviously, every agency has their own NIST risk management framework process that they go through that identifies all of those controls. And then they review your actual assessment results and ensure that they're comfortable with the implementation and the level of risk that is commensurate with their organization. There may be a bunch of PMO check-ins depending on the agency's flexibility. There are some core deliverables that have to be met, obviously, but there are some meeting check-ins with the FedRAMP PMO throughout that process. And then at the end of said process, once the ATO has been granted, on the agency side, the ATO has been granted through the 3PAL, and the FedRAMP PMO has conducted their review and found all activities to be satisfied with an appropriate level of risk based off of your low, moderate, high categorization. Then you will be posted and made available on the FedRAMP Marketplace and listed as a FedRAMP authorized service. And it also identifies the agency that sponsored your package, or if you have multiple agencies that are leveraging your system. And that does allow you to be searchable on the Marketplace. And then the other opportunity that you have, say you're not, your specific product is not up for being considered at the JAB level, meaning you don't have a strong interest, and maybe it is, not the best use case for you to get your authorization because it is timely. And maybe you are not all the way into a federal space where you're locked in with a customer, or maybe you're locked in with a customer, but they're not willing to go through the sponsorship process. As I mentioned, it can have a lot of requirements on their side of the house, and sometimes they're just not interested in going through that process. What can you do to kind of get your foot in the door and establish yourself so that you have potential agencies that are understanding and situationally aware that you're ready to go through this so they can sponsor you? We have what's called a FedRAMP ready process, right? And so making yourself FedRAMP ready shows that you as a vendor have fully committed through and gone through and obtained a 3PAO. You've had your assessment done, and that means you've probably had a gap assessment done. You've already done all of your documentation. Your 3PAO has conducted an assessment, and you've met all of the criteria, and now you're waiting to be picked up for that sponsorship activity. That makes you more attractive, obviously, to federal agencies that might be leveraging these types of services, but it also may make it a little bit more marketable to other organizations, knowing that you have some level of compliance implemented at your organization and you've gone through the rigorous 3PAO, and you can leverage that very similar to a SOC 2 assessment report as well. And these are all things that obviously will allow you to get onto that FedRAMP Marketplace as a FedRAMP ready solution and making yourself available to get into the FedRAMP authorization process. The kicker with being FedRAMP ready, and the kicker throughout this entire process, is ensuring that you as a vendor understand once your assessment is completed, you only have a limited time, 365 days, to go ahead and become FedRAMP authorized before that assessment is no longer valid, and you must go ahead and kind of reinitiate that window. So that is something that you do want to take into consideration as you're going through the FedRAMP ready process. But MindPoint can tell you a little bit more about all of those activities, and we can absolutely support you as an advisor and helping you get through all of this process. There is another video that tells you a little bit more about our advisory services. Hope this answers some of your questions, and look out for more videos.